Hi, everybody. Welcome to Lurking for Legends, a live video cast that speaks with people from all walks of the publishing world. Christy Stratos, who can't be here tonight, David M. Kelly, and myself encourage our viewers to chime in with questions for our guests and comment on what you hear on the show. And tonight, Lurking for Legends is thrilled to speak with science fiction, fantasy, thriller, and mystery author Declan Finn. Welcome, Declan.
Thanks for
Hi,
having me.
Declan.
Before we get started, Declan, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, let me see. I've been a lifelong resident of New York City for, my sins. I have been writing since I was 16, but I've only been published for 10 years, come this last March, actually. So it's been an interesting ride. I tend to write pretty much anything that's not nailed down, usually anything that catches my interest that day. It's only a slight exaggeration. I tend to work in series. I started with a murder mystery at a sci-fi convention. Okay, that was the first thing I published. I started writing a space opera, which turned into what is now called White Ops. It's been called 5 other things in the meantime. But I started with murder mystery, a science fiction convention. I did a thriller series. I've done multiple thriller series by now. But basically, the entire thing started because I was going to do what was, at that time, fan fiction. I didn't even know there was a term for that sort of thing, or that people did that sort of thing regularly. And, well, it spiraled. It's like, I'm going to do one short story. Just one. 15 months and 8,000 pages later, depending, it got out of hand. And now I'm up to about 30 published novels, which will be going through a slight hiccup, but that's another conversation. And yeah, heck, I even found a publisher for the space opera I started with when I was 16, and so it's been an interesting run.
That certainly sounds like it. So my question is, I just write in fantasy, and that's all I can write in, because that's really all I have the headspace for. And I hear a lot of authors write in multiple genres, and how did you do that? Do you have more than one book going at a time? Like, are you writing in different genres all the time, or do you just stick to the one genre and write the series and then switch?
Mostly I write the genre, then switch. Now, granted, I have been stuck. I have been mostly focusing on urban fantasy for the last more like the last 8 years now. And like I said, the sci-fi stuff was what I started with. But no, mostly with the urban fantasy, I don't have to worry about people telling me that I got something wrong because, hi, in my world, I'm making things up as I go along. I'm setting the rules. Now, what kind of fantasy do you write? Epic, urban?
Epic, yeah. Epic or high fantasy for sure.
Now, no, that makes perfect sense why you're, quote, stuck, because that requires more headspace than I've got. It's like, you have to build the world from the ground up, and everybody and everything in it, and down to cultures, down to, the money. So, yeah, I get that. I've considered doing general epic fantasy, or I can't do it. Mostly I'm set in the, quote, secret world department of urban fantasy. For those of you who don't know that term, that's basically, yes, there is the supernatural going around. There are monsters running loose, but the general public does not know that. If you want examples of secret world, well, buy my books. No, you can also look up Larry Correa, his Monster Hunter International, Jim Butcher, of course. Open world would be, Laurel K. Hamilton, at least her early books. We won't talk about the more recent ones. And, oh yes, Nicholas Woods Smith, who's actually out of South Africa. is there a genre I haven't written in yet that I would like to try?
Yeah, this is a question from Hillary. She's asking if you've a genre that you haven't actually written in yet that you'd like to try.
I'd like to try straight up fantasy just to see if I can. You know, nothing to do with modern day worlds. Unfortunately, it's like I am a historian by training, and I'm afraid that since everything else in my writing career has spiraled, if I start working on that, it's going to be, okay, 1,000,000 years ago, we're going to start with, in the beginning, and go from there. And I have the feeling that would suck up most of my life. So
no, exactly. No, that's exactly what's happening to me. I've written a series, and I'm got about 30 books to write before the series that I wrote.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I keep writing backwards. Each time I write a series, I get so much lore in my head. I got to write backwards because I want to write the story. So yeah, it's definitely time consuming, and that's why I wouldn't write in a different genre. Not that I don't want to. I before I started writing fantasy, I did write science fiction. I love science fiction when Star Wars came out in '77. But I'm so hooked on this fantasy story now. I don't think I won't live long enough to finish my series. So,
and I'm going the other way because I started kind of like in the near future sci-fi, and I've got a whole kind of like future history plan there that I'm sort of like working my way through. So it's like we're all kind of like coming at it from different ends.
Oh, definitely. Well, I just hope, at least in your case, David, that it's not too near. Otherwise, it's going to kind of run into each other.
Yeah, that's always the problem with science fiction. It's like the world is changing so quickly now. It's crazy sometimes. I keep seeing things, and I'm thinking, wow, I kind of got that in my books. It's like it's more commonplace. It's not new, but it's like it's in there.
What year is yours set, Dave? I forget. What year is yours set in Joe Ballin book?
The first Joe Ballin book is set in 2143.
Okay, so we don't have any fear of us running into that.
No.
Not unless they come up with some kind of miracle pill. Yes. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe if I get preserved in a computer or something, I might run into that problem, but I'm not worried about it too much yet. Okay, so, good. Declan, it's your 10th year anniversary. You've written kind of like, or released, sort of published 30 novels. What would you say were the best and kind of like worst experiences you've had during that time as an author? So that's quite a while.
Oh, well, the worst experiences are twofold. One, the experience where I made my first covers. For those of you who want to or have to, and I do make a distinction, for anyone who wants to get into publishing, self-publishing, or even traditional publishing, because either way it'll help, either get a friend who is into graphic design, or B, love Photoshop, because trust me, it will come in handy. Yeah, I made one cover. It took me 3 days. It was kind of terrible when I had to lay down and put a warm compress over my eyes on an hourly basis because, good Lord, that sucked. But no, the worst problem of writing is the marketing, and nowadays you can't do marketing on any level unless you're plugged into social media, which I don't know how frequently either of you are on Facebook or Twitter or any of the 6 other sites there are now.
Mm-hmm.
Flaming dumpster fire is a nice way to put it most of the time. And I did not know when I entered into sci-fi fantasy that there were so many different groups shooting at each other. And my general attitude is, leave me alone and let me write. But no. So it's interesting.
So what do you mean that different groups are shooting at each other?
Oh, there are some groups that are based politically.
Sorry. So you're not talking genres. You're talking about groups on social media.
Groups on social media.
All right.
Groups within fandom. You know,
Yeah. All right.
heck, I'm friends with some of the wrong people, and no, I'm not going to go into them because you guys might get backlash just for having me on. And it's bizarre how much slander and libel really should come back into law. Just looking at the internet. But,
Yeah. No, it's certainly not a great place to learn your phonics. That's for sure.
no. Yes, if yes, the other thing that might come in handy, get either graphics design or just plain marketing degree. But no, as I keep
It's interesting, Declan.
no, go ahead.
Because I do actually my own covers, and it's like I have no graphics background whatsoever, apart from I did once work in a games company, and at that time, like if you worked in a games company, you kind of like threw your hand into whatever was going on. It's like so. I was nominally a software developer, but I ended up doing bits of graphics and 3D and stuff like that. And so I thought when I came to doing mine, I thought, well, covers are expensive, so I'll give it a go and see what I can do. I can't draw very well, but I mean, I can do 3D stuff, And so far, I've managed to do them, and I think I've got some pretty good covers. But I know what you mean. It's like it takes a lot of work, and it's a lot of time. I mean, you were saying like you were doing one for 3 days and everything. I mean, I think the first one I did, it took me at least sort of 3 months until I was ready with it. I kept working away at it, sort of thing, trying to get it look something decent, I've got better, thank God. It doesn't take me as long as well, so that's good.
Oh yeah, practice does help.
Yeah. So you're saying like about social media and what have you. I mean, you look very, very kind of like active on Twitter.
That's the wonders of social media programming, where it's like I may have been publishing for 10 years, but I've been blogging for 12, 13 now. And so all I really need to do is program every hour or so. Here's a blog post on this topic. Here's a blog post on that topic. That way I have the illusion of being active on social media without needing to get into fistfights. Also, I will take whatever funny memes are kicking around and I'll just post them. It's like timed post. So I don't want to get into fistfights. I want to write books. So
yeah.
Again, and have you found it a good avenue for developing your readership? Would you recommend it over other social media channels or what?
I think the key to marketing books, the best way to market books, is to have a lot of them. This gets into writing advice, which my first suggestion for writing is don't, unless you feel compelled to write. People who tell me, oh, I want to be a writer. Have you written your first book? No. Have you written anything? No. You don't want to be a writer. Goodbye. Mainly because it requires a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of rewiring your brain. I found I rewired my brain by accident, and now it never turns off. In the last 10 years, I think I've taken 4 months off of writing. That wasn't at gunpoint. Oh, look, it's Christmas. Family wants to see you. It's Thanksgiving. Family would like to know you are still alive. That sort of thing. And as far as selling books goes, I find the best way to do it is just publish as often as possible. Some people might take this as a piece of advice of, yes, just turn out crap and people will buy it. I don't recommend that. I really don't. But thankfully, I've got an entire family of readers who, they are the type of people who will read traditionally published books with a pen in their hand and go, all right, you need a quotation mark there? Why is this not indented? Then again, they will also do that to the newspaper. So I've got a good group of beta readers to run my novels past. And in my case, my wife was a fan first, and, then she married me after multiple years.
Well, that's a good sign that she married you after she read your books.
Yes. Yes. Although she is into graphic design, and she's working on developing book covers for me. So I lucked out there. Although she's only done 2 or 3 books, so she's only done a small fraction. Most of what I've done has gone through a publisher that's now folding, so there will be a brief hiatus on a large chunk of my books.
Yes, you mentioned that before we came on air. Why don't we talk a little bit about that? You say you got 30 books out, and you had 20 books, I think, tied up with this one publisher. And so, any fans of Declan Finn, I don't know if they might be worried that might not be able to get hold of Declan Finn's books anymore. Let the people know what's going on with that.
Oh, well, my publisher, Silver Empire, pretty much got taken out. I blamed lockdowns and Corona, etc., because it's a 2-person publishing operation. And they were managing about a dozen authors, give or take. And they were working pretty consistently up until 2020. And it knocked their entire rhythm off. And they never really recovered 100%, not to mention there is a publisher called Ingram Spark. It's a printer, and its home base is in California, which has been more or less solidly locked down for 2+ years. And they have been farming out printers. They've been farming out the print jobs to smaller printers in other states that don't work as well as the main facility does. So that's part of it. Scheduling's part of it. Basically, it was a wonderful collaboration of random events to take them down. So I'm now stuck with 20 some odd books. Yeah, 20 some odd books that need new homes. Thankfully, I've got 3 different publishers making offers, and coincidentally, I have 3 different series out of the 20 books. So it's like, okay, you get one, you get one, you get one. So it's going to come out. It'll come out well in the end. It's just a matter of anybody's looking for anything other than 10 specific books of mine. They're going to have to wait just a little bit. Although I'm told at least one series will be up and running more or less within 4 months entirely.
Nice.
Yeah. But it's only a 4-book series. So, but either way, I'll take it.
So in the interim, and you sound like you're so busy, like you say, your family gets to see you at Christmas and Thanksgiving. To add to the mix, if I'm not mistaken, I read on your one site that you're starting a radio show on Sunday, June 7th. Is that correct?
That must have been an old one.
Is that an old post? Okay, I wasn't sure.
Probably an old post. I had a podcast on Blog Talk Radio. I don't know if you two have ever had any interaction with Blog Talk Radio. If you have, okay, good. Don't. Just don't.
Okay. Right.
Okay.
Okay, you can disregard that question. I saw it on there, and I thought that sounds interesting. That you're going to be doing that. So
no, it was called The Catholic Geek, and it was mostly a matter of I had an affiliated website run by a friend of mine of a similar name, so that's how the podcast wound up being labeled. And I didn't give it up so much as it just fell by the wayside from disrepair and disuse.
Okay, fair enough. So what am I doing? Oh, another thing. So, and this I also saw this on a different site actually. So again, congratulations on being 10 years published. That's awesome. I'm not quite there yet, but I saw in the newsletter something about Merging Dragons Award, and of course,
Oh,
being an epic fantasy author, that as soon as I saw dragons, I was like, Caw the Snake. My eyes were just,
well,
Dragons.
yes. The Dragon Awards are based out of Dragon Con in Atlanta. I'm not sure if you're familiar with
yeah,
it.
yeah. I'd love to be there, but I don't think I could afford to do that.
That's why I go to airport hotels and I drive down. It's cheaper that way.
No, but I don't even think I could afford to get a table at Dragon Con if they'd even accept me. So,
Oh no. I don't get tables or I don't run a booth. I just show up and I'm a guest.
no, I know I'd love to sell books there, but yeah, they wouldn't take me. I don't think.
But no, you apply as a attending a professional. That's usually how I do it. They have a fan voted award. That's I really like the award. It's shiny and it's one of the few things that I covet. But aside from that, it's entertaining because I can usually get books out of it just by reading the list. It's like, okay, more shopping. Not that I don't already have more books than I know what to do with. It's like, yes, I could read them all if I live to be 120 and don't buy any more. But that's just so unreasonable. But no, the Dragon Awards are fun. I've actually been nominated twice. It is free for the entire internet to go and vote. There's no fee. It's not the Hugo Awards. You don't have to buy a membership. You just have to show up and vote. And again, I'm still trying to figure out how I got nominated twice. Dragon Con has officially 65,000 members show up every year. Unofficially, they don't tell the fire marshal what their numbers are, because there have been several blocks of time where you couldn't enter into one of the 5 main hotels because the fire marshal said no more people come in, and these are not small hotels. But about 1 million people show up just for their parade. It's, to my knowledge, it's the only convention that has its own parade.
Oh.
I know New York Comic Con doesn't. I don't know about San Diego, but in New York there's just no room. But no, it's a fun convention. And again, the awards are shiny.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of exciting that you got nominated. I imagine now these a lot of indie authors get nominated for that, or is it the generally just the traditional 5s, or
it's a mixed bag.
Yeah,
pretty much the people who show up are the ones who are made aware of it. Really, that's why I make sure to talk about it at least once a month on my blog, because I want people to vote. I don't care if they don't even vote for me.
Right.
It's like, that's why I usually make an entire blog post. It's like, okay, this person in this genre, I've read this one. This is awesome. And I go on like that. Thank you for reminding me. I actually need to redo that blog for this month, especially because most of the nominees I had in mind were part of my publisher that just folded. So, Murphy's Law. It's right up there with laws of physics. It really is. But no, I also run a book review site called Upstream Reviews, where we're actually trying to take politics out of reviews. It's like, hi, is this book good? Great. We have a little politics section of, okay, well, if you're one of those people who think that no book can ever be apolitical, here, if you tilt your head sideways and twist yourself into a knot, you can see these politics if you really insist on it. Otherwise, just enjoy the damn book. So anyway, but no, I've actually been running Dragon Awards posts through there as well, and I'm kind of hoping to get the other reviewers to actually play along, because after a while, it's a lot of work. I've actually been trying to encourage encourage voting in the Dragon Awards since it started. And one year I made the mistake of saying, hey, if you've published a book and you think it's eligible, just mention it in the comments. I did that once. Because the amount of people who just dropped an Amazon link to their book and disappeared were legion. And decidedly unhelpful. So
yeah, that all goes back to social media, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
Because people just pop in.
Yep.
And I can't really blame them. It's marketing.
They're trying. Yeah, they're trying, but it's wrong. But they're trying.
They are very trying.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a different conversation. Hell, right now, actually, there are some times, this year included, I've actually recommended one of my own books for Best Sci-Fi. And it's less because I want the award and it's shiny, and more a matter of, I'm trying to remember the last science fiction book I read. That's actually been released within the eligibility window. And unfortunately, it's like, so what came out recently? Yeah, that's at the bottom of the to be read pile. Somewhere around here, pile's about yay tall. So I'm a little behind.
So Declan, I noticed in one of your recent tweets, you said you'd written 5,000 words that day.
Yes.
Is that kind of typical for your productivity? And do you have any tips for authors on how to increase their word count?
My productivity usually goes around 2,500 words a day. On a good day, it's 3,000. On a really good day, when I can get everyone to leave me alone, my wife is somewhere else and doesn't notice if I'm up until midnight writing, I can get 10,000 words. I have done that. And I surprisingly need very little editing afterwards. I know that sounds miraculous, but it's practice. As far as what I do, I'm on a 9 to 5 schedule. I roll out of bed into the office and I start typing, and I eventually remember to eat. And that's
so you can start writing right off the hop. You can just get in there and start going, eh?
Oh yeah.
Because I wish I could do that.
Well, you've got a more complicated world to deal with.
No, I don't. I'm a pantser, so don't. There is no complication in my epic fantasy writing. I open the door, kick the guy out, and I have no idea what he's going to see. I don't world build. I don't magic. I don't build magic systems. I can't be bothered with all that stuff. I want to tell a story, so the epic comes into it through my character's eyes, and then I make copious notes afterwards. But
yeah, I'm told Tolkien actually did that. He was a quote discovery writer or pantser.
That's the new technical term, I guess. It's discovery writer. We like to say pantsers, and that's what I love going by. And I fly by the seat of my pants for sure.
Yes, yes, pantser. No, I am mostly a discovery. I'm a pantser for the most part. The only thing that one series I did not outline, I did not pants for was my St. Tommy NYPD novels. They're mostly kind of horror. They were very research driven because the premise was we have a cop who has the powers or charisms of a saint, which are miraculous gifts from God, like smelling evil or levitation. And of course, the first thing I do is I throw him up against a possessed serial killer. My publisher, which is the one that just folded, insisted that he see outlines before I begin, because, there are some people who will just not believe that you're going to write the book until you at least show them you know where you're going. Although I think his attitude was more a matter of he wanted to see exactly that I knew where I was going before I started. He wanted a very specific criteria, because I have this tendency of growing my casts, and unlike George Martin, I don't kill them all. So, he wanted to contain the collateral damage and collateral character growth. But even then, you can do outlines and you don't have to stick to them. Book one, which was called Hellspawn. I was going to have 2 chapters that was nothing but, police footwork, pounding the pavement, talking to people. At which point I got to that in the book and said, I'm bored. Let's blow up this guy's car with a car bomb. And it worked. It kept it, I jumped over all that boring stuff. For those people who are pantsers, I do recommend Raymond Chandler's quote that every time the plot gets slow, send in a man through the door with a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, my boredom threshold when I'm writing might not beat everyone's taste because my wife has on occasion read my books and, read the books in the document. And, I have a little note of, is this too slow? And her reply is, only you would think that. So,
Oh, definitely, as writers, we're our worst critics. That's for sure.
This is true. The second book in that series, Death Cult, I actually thought was fairly lame. I was worried, but I got through the editor, no problem. Got published, no problem, and a lot of the reviews are, this was better than the first one.
Now, that's interesting you say that. I had that experience that when I wrote Rika's Gift, which is the second book in my Legend of the Lurker trilogy. And as I'm writing it, even I'm thinking, oh my God, as a pantser, I don't know where I'm going. This is getting, long and drawn out. I don't think I like it. But then I finally finished it. And now that I go back and read it, I'm thinking, oh, this is actually pretty good. Do you see that now as the author of your book, the second book? Do you appreciate its merit now that you just go back and look at it?
No, every time I go back and look at something, it's like, yeah, okay, I could have added this scene, I could have expanded that. It's the thing.
Yeah, well, you can always do that. Yeah, I think I could edit my book a million times and I would still not be happy with it.
Yeah. Well, the current books I have out, the White Ops series, which is basically space opera, special operations group science fiction edition. And, and White Ops was a play on Black Ops. When I wrote that, 100 years ago, I made it up as I went along and going back. It's every time I finish a book or two, I went back, read through it again. It's like, I'm spiking this, I'm spiking that, I'm developing this. What was I thinking when I wrote that? Another piece of advice for those of you who would write, take some time away from each project, come back to it, reread it, and try not to spike the whole thing. There are days you will be tempted. I know. I'm going through that right now with a different project. But.
So the White Ops series, is this, I take it this is some kind of military sci-fi type thing?
I call it space opera because I threw in everything, including the kitchen sink, into it. But yeah, it's mostly science fiction, infantry based, not hardware based. I am not David Weber. I cannot do 3-dimensional chess in space with an X, Y, and Z axis. So I stick to, I don't want to call them Mission Impossible type scenarios, but I try. I am a fan of Mission Impossible, the original TV series. DVDs are a wonderful thing. And I approach it from that particular angle. I have done 1 or 2 massive space battles, but the conclusion to that was, well, very Doctor Who-like.
And do you have characters doing the whole kind of like and pulling their faces off?
No, that's what holograms are for, and hologram projectors. No, I basically a whole bunch of miscellaneous technology ended up in this book. One, like, for example, digital scanning, digital camouflage, I think it's called, or at least whatever they're calling it these days, where you have fiber optic cameras taking images on one end and projecting them out the other side, so it looks it looks invisible. It's active camouflage. And I have that built into nanotechnology suits and uniforms. So, you know, you just pull a hood up and kind of disappear. It kind of, you know, since I'm a snarky bugger, I just have a whole bunch of references to, didn't they do that in that Lord of the Rings series? It's like, shh, don't you know. Yes, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Honest. Although I've actually took what you said earlier, David, about, you know, writing something and then it comes true a certain number of years later, where I actually name a whole bunch of technology in the book after the people who wrote it initially. You know, the walking tanks are called Heinleins. You know, heavy armored infantry are called the Spartan Fives. Aliens are very confused and wondered what happened to the first four. You know, things like that. Starships are called Weber class. Although, had I actually written it later, I would have just made a Weber of missiles, which apparently the people over at David Weber's publishing company have used as a measure of tonnage when throwing in missile exchanges. But no, I basically everything in my head wound up on the page. And, you know, there's espionage elements on one end, military elements on the other. What I guess is 24th century politics on the other. So it ends up being a space opera straight up, because classifying it as any one thing is complicated.
So, I mean, you mentioned that your education is more in the kind of the areas of philosophy and history. So how did you get from that to writing speculative fiction?
Well, I actually started writing speculative fiction. I was 16. And when I went into college, the first thing I did was programmed a series of, okay, I need to get all these credits out of the way for the core curriculum. I'll figure out what I'm doing next. And philosophy was just easy, at least for me. I literally wound up getting a double major, and history I found useful because it was simply a series of stories. And I've actually gotten away with using a lot of both in my work. I've taken philosophy, where it's basically, yes, for example, with White Ops, I made an entire alien race where they're running on Aristotelian natural law philosophy. And, you know, then they meet Earth, and it's like, okay, you've got some interesting ideas. You guys have expanded on the concept. We'll take those and walk away with them. Thank you. And on the other hand, I've also used natural law philosophy and some metaphysics from philosophy to make vampires and build up the mythos that way. And with history, I believe they call it patchwork plagiarism, where I've taken various elements of various cultures throughout history, and then I plug them into an alien race. Again, White Ops. I do the late medieval fourfold caste system, where you've got the soldiers, you've got the priests, you've got the peasants, who are your workers, and you've got the merchants. So, like I said, that everything wound up into these things. It wound up in my head. It wound up on the page somewhere.
So you mentioned vampires there, and I know you have a quartet, Love at First Bite, I believe.
Yep.
So I have to ask you this, like, what are your favorite vampire movies?
Well, I did enjoy Love at First Bite, the 1970s edition, which was a parody of vampire movies, starring Hamilton.
George Hamilton.
Thank you. George Hamilton, which, is hilarious because he's a vampire with a permanent tan.
Yes.
I liked the original miniseries for Salem's Lot. Personally, I think that's one of the better books Stephen King ever did. Could not get into the Blade movies to save my life, but that was mostly a matter of, wait, hold on, you're rejecting silver, you're rejecting crosses, you're rejecting holy water, so you're just really aggressive porphyria victims. Okay. But that's a microbiology quibble, which also wound up in the books, come to think of it. Favorite vampire stuff? I prefer the original Bela Lugosi Dracula.
Interesting.
Granted, I would have liked that they had more of a soundtrack other than, Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake, but it was going the rounds.
So it's interesting you asked that question, David. So what would be your favorite vampire movie?
Mine, I would say, would probably be The Lost Boys.
Okay.
I like the way they did that. I like the way that they kind of like mixed the sort of the horror aspects with the kind of sort of more comedic and light-hearted aspects. So it was kind of like it was serious, but it was still fun. And since then, I mean, quite honestly, I don't think I've seen a modern sort of vampire one that I really care for.
No, I'm the same way, for sure.
Yeah. Hey, when I saw The Lost Boys, the best scene in the movie was, the one thing I hate about this town, all the damn vampires.
All the damn vampires, yeah.
So I see we're.
I think that sorry, Richard. I think my favorite one has to be was it the young guy, that Corey Haim?
Corey Haim, yeah.
And Haim, and when he finds out his brother's a vampire, he says, "Yeah, you're a goddamn blood-sucking vampire. Wait till I tell Mom."
Maybe I'll have to revisit those down the road. Yeah. So anyway, I see we've run our time. That's gone by pretty quick, Declan, and we appreciate you being here today. And before we let you go, you probably touched on this, but what's your next book that you're going to release, and when can your readers expect it?
Working on two things right now. More White Ops, which I should be able to turn it in by June, and it'll probably come out next year. I am self-publishing a sequel to my vampire series. It's called Honeymoon from Hell. I get my main characters married, and then more things go falling apart. And book one of that, which is called, what is it called? I know the current one. Yes, The Necromancer.
Nice.
Yes, Rob, a friend of mine on social media said, why doesn't any of these vampire romance books just go full in and call themselves The Necromancer? My reply was, challenge accepted. So that should be coming out in June. And if I write to schedule, the next four or five books in that series will come one a month right after that.
Thanks. And
where? Sorry.
No, go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to say, Declan, where can people find out more about your writing?
Mostly from my Substack. It's declanfinn.substack.com. I've got a declanfinn.com, which is run by Blogger, so if it's actually up and running, yay. I'm on Twitter under Declan Finn Books. If there's a social media site, I'm usually there. Every time one pops up, I'm probably going to I have no idea what's coming around the corner. So there's supposed to be another one I'm not yet on. Can't even remember that. I can be reached at Declan Finn Inc. at AOL.com. Yes, I still use AOL. It still works. I'm not getting rid of it.
And just before we let you go, what is Substack?
Substack is just
I saw that word and it just jumped out at me as a stack of subs. I'm thinking that's kind of a weird thing. So is it actually a submarine sandwich, or is it a stack of submarine boats?
Stack of submissions.
Okay, all right.
It's basically another blogging platform.
Okay.
Only this way it comes with the option of being doubling as a mailing list at the same time.
All right. I don't know why that word just hit me as bizarre. So that's awesome. So Dave has actually typed that in for you, and it came up under my name because it's on my site here. But so we got Declan Finn at Substack.com. And so again, Declan, thank you for being with us this week. We appreciate you coming on and
Thanks, Declan.
a little
Thank
bit
you
about
for
the
having
books. And hopefully our viewers will check them out. And so, David, before we go, what's new in the David Kelly universe with Joe Ballin and Logan Two Feathers and Hyperia?
Well, Logan Two Feathers is the third Logan Two Feathers book is definitely well into the swing. I actually had quite a good day today. It's like I was doing a Declan. I had over 3,000 words today, so I was pleased with that.
Is that going to be the new phrase? We did a Declan?
Yep, that's the new phrase. We did a Declan. Okay. And I am just about to get the proofs back from my proofreader for book 2, and that's all set for coming out in a couple of months.
So I'm not going to be able to get one in my hands at the end of this month.
I'm afraid not.
Shit.
No.
I should get a reader advance copy or something.
I can't. I mean, that's one thing that annoys me about Amazon. You can't order author copies in advance.
Especially as a Canadian author. It's a little bit different. We noticed as a Canadian author, there's a lot of different promos and stuff that Amazon offer authors that we cannot take advantage of, and it just it irks us up here. That's we feel like.
But that's the news for me this week. Not much, but things are progressing. How about you, Richard?
Awesome. No, I'm just plugging away at Windwalker, book 3 in the High Cliff Guardian series, and it is. You know what? I will never do NaNoWriMo ever again in my life. I've never done it. I hated listening to it every time November came around. I go, oh my God, you guys are going to just talk about this for a month straight. And then so last year I figured, okay, just do it. And then I'm part of the conversation and I'm going to enjoy it. And I got 40,000 some odd words. I didn't quite make 50 and I'm okay with that. But after cramming those 40,000 words in, which wasn't natural, all of a sudden my writing slowed right down to almost nothing over the last few months. And I think it's hurt me more than anything. So I will never do a NaNoWriMo again, but it's certainly my fault, not the programs. But so anyway, I'm just about to cross over the 100,000 word mark in Windwalker. So yeah, but that's it for me. And there's really nothing new. I've stopped doing audiobooks for a while just until I can figure out how to market them better, because investing all the money in audiobooks, unless I find some kind of guru that could sell them for me, it doesn't make financial sense. So. So next week's guest is graphic novelist and classic Gothic suspense author Paulus Linnaeus. I'm probably saying his wrong name. Paulus is a former bilingual professor, doctor, parachutist, military instructor, scuba diver, writer, academic editor, poet, musician. Hang on, I'm going to take a breath here. Who has traveled and lived throughout the world from Toronto, New York, Sydney to the Middle East, Far East, Caribbean, Europe, and so on. Paulus has lived several lives and will share with us his broad perspective on life and how he's incorporated them into his stories. So, wow, that guy's been around.
I think I'll retire now.
Yeah, I think it sounds like it's going to be a great show for sure. So until next week, thank you again, Declan, for joining us. And Christy and Dave and myself hope everyone has a safe and happy week ahead. Until we meet again, everybody, take good care.
Thanks, everyone.